I want to just introduce myself again, Dennis Gingerich of Gingerich PhotoArt, and I often get asked if someone stops by or sees some of my images, they say, well, what kind of camera do you use? Now that's kind of a two-part deal. One is, it's one of those things that you really usually don't ask a great guitarist what kind of guitar did they use. You enjoy the music for what it is. And the same is true in terms of photographs and photographers. Photographers don't always like to be asked what kind of camera, thinking that somehow it was the camera that made all the difference. That's really not true. It's only about a fourth of the image of the picture, and the quality and everything else has to do with the camera. The rest has to do with other parts of it. But for you techies, I know that you want to know, what kind of equipment. Well, I've used Canon in my early years in film. And then when I switched to digital later, I went for a period of time without a DSLR, and then I bought a Nikon. And so I'm on my third different Nikon that I have, and I have a D750 right now. It's a full frame camera. If you're familiar with full frame and crop sensor and all of that, it's a great camera. It's a solid camera. It does an amazing job in astrophotography and naturescape photography and so forth. The standard walk-around lens that I often use is this 28 to 120. It's an f4, if that means anything to you. I use that mostly, a lot in a lot of things, but for the real landscape shots that I take, I love my 14 to 24. This is a f2.8. Lets in lots of light. It's great for astrophotography. You'll see its unique kind of way that the lens bows out, and it's a very wide angle camera lens, but it's an awesome job. It's one of the finest lenses that's available. It's the heaviest of my smaller lenses. It's an amazing, got lots of glass in there. And then for wildlife kinds of things, I use the 200 to 500 Nikon lens. It's an f6 fixed f-stop, and that's a great lens. It's fast. It's not the largest. I'm not into serious wildlife photography. If I did, I would certainly have some of the bigger lenses that are available if I was into that. But one of the things that's always very important in terms of any camera is, I always say the camera is just about a fourth of everything. I would say you got to know how to use it. You got to know what the settings are. That's another fourth of an important. If you don't know what the settings are, if you don't know what the shutter priority, the aperture priority, or the ISO settings, if you don't know what those things are, learn to know those in your camera. Those are very important pieces. Another part is the composition. That's a fourth of it as well. The composition is very important. If you have things that aren't leading your eye into the picture, the composition, something's wrong with it. If you don't have things to maybe anchor in a wide landscape, something in the foreground, something in the mid-range, something in the long distance to take your eye to, those are all important pieces. Or if you have random branches coming out of weird places or whatever, out of the corner of the picture or whatever, those sort of things, all about composition. And then the fourth thing that I say is most important in getting a great shot is learning how to process the picture along with some of the other things. Like if you're shooting slow speed, you got to have a tripod. Tripods are extremely important. Or if I'm shooting wildlife or birding or something like that, I often use my monopod. I use those things. These are both carbon fiber, and they're light to carry, and they're part of my backpack. But I would say the fourth part is that I want to get into is the post-processing. What do you do with the camera? I shoot everything in RAW. I don't shoot in JPEG. I shoot everything in the RAW format. You collect the largest amount of data and the purest amount of data in the biggest scope of things that your camera can capture. And then you can take it. I use Lightroom predominantly. I'm very familiar with Lightroom, a little bit of Photoshop occasionally, but mostly Lightroom to tweak to get a picture back to what I really saw. in that whole picture, because our eyes are so much more able to get the dynamic range of light and shadow and brightness and everything much more than any camera that's made. And so sometimes you can have areas that'll be blown out because of too much light, because a camera can't go that far in range and capture the shadows like your eye can. So I want to recreate that as much as possible in my post-processing. So that's just a little bit for the people who are the techies who want to know, what do you take your pictures with? This is what I take my current pictures with, but some of the images that you'll see in my virtual booth are images that were taken with my camera that I had before this, which was a crop sensor Nikon D7000. I still have that camera. It's my backup. It goes in my pack when I'm going, just in case something happens with this camera. I use it as a backup, or occasionally my wife picks it up and we'll take some shots with that as well if we're traveling together, like we did earlier a couple of months back in Alaska. She was using the D7000 part of the time, even though she's not really a photographer. She puts it on one of the auto program kind of modes and shoots away and does a fine job of capturing some great things that I'm not capturing with this particular one, because of maybe the lens I have on it, because that has a wide range of an 18 to 200 lens on one camera. Makes a great travel camera as well. So thought you might want to know a few of those things. If you're interested more, certainly these are a few of the things that I use to capture the images that you're seeing here in my virtual booth here at this art festival.